Hey everybody! Tonight we're doing the Goonies here on the podcast. This is Jason, your host, creator. You know me by now, and I'm so glad that you're here tonight. I've been wanting to talk about the Goonies for a long time. It's a film that I grew up with, like I think a lot of us did. If you are a Gen X, maybe millennial, maybe you're older. I don't know. My kids love this film, and I don't even know what generation they are. But this is a movie that so many of us have ties to. So many of our earliest memories are tied to. I think in some ways kind of forms the foundation of our memories of what childhood is like. When I first started thinking about what this movie would be or what this podcast would be, this was one of the first films I wanted to do. And I thought about it as a film of friendship and growing up and things like that. So when the time came, I just saw a meme, and we get into it here in the podcast about why, but I saw a meme. It was like, it's time. I want to do this film, and I really want to do this movie with three friends of mine who I absolutely love and adore. And they are back here today. I'm talking about Wyatt Greenlee. I'm talking about Leah Lagrone and Jamie Goodall, who's making her very first appearance here on the pod. And she fits right in just like the Goonie that she is. She is amazing. Is an expert on piracy. So get ready, because there is actual history involved in this podcast. When we are not laughing and thinking about our childhood and memories and relaying all of these different feelings and things like that. So this is one of the most fun pods we've ever done. I'm sitting here a few minutes after we record this thing because I was crying from laughing so hard at the very end of this pod. We had a blast. This is such an amazing time. So if you love the Goonies and you love history and you love this community that we've built here at HATM for the last 6 years, I hope that you like this pod. This is a lot of fun. And this is four friends just talking, being friends, talking about a movie we all grew up with, talking about the history behind it, and enjoying it. So in a lot of ways, this pod is HATM in a nutshell. So I hope you enjoy it. So, hey, you guys, Goonies is next. An HATM podcast. All right, fuck it. Let's go. Goonies say start. I don't know. Hey guys, what's going on? Hi. Welcome to Thunderdome. All right. We're doing the Goonies tonight. Like this is a build up, and this is entirely come in because I saw a meme on the interwebs. Did you guys see this one going around about the Zennials?
No. Mm-hmm. I think didn't you send it to me?
I did. Well, of course you saw it, Leah, because I sent it directly to you. But it was like there's this idea that I saw this meme that said something to the effect of like screw Zennial generation, 77 to 83. We should just call this the Goonie generation. I was like,
right.
Holy shit. Yes, this makes sense. And I know 75% of us are in said dynamic, and the other one is a pirate historian. So I felt like, Jamie, you're honorary Goonie, like, I guess.
I am.
No. Hold on. You said 77?
Oh shit, are you 76, John Wyatt?
Yeah.
Look at you, boomer motherfucker.
Get off my lawn.
What part of 76?
January.
Okay, so we're going. All right, so we're going with the long 77. We're gonna go long durée Goonies is what we're gonna.
Yes. We'll do 76 through like 83.
Congratulations,
it's where
John,
my heart is.
John Wyatt, your brand is what you are.
You're going to tie me to a chair with my own exercise equipment?
I guess, I suppose.
All right, sweet. As long as I know what's coming, it's fine.
Okay, that's good. So, all right, let's talk about this movie. Welcome, guys. We have returning to this podcast, John Wyatt Greenlee. John Wyatt, explain to everybody who you are real quick and what you're doing here.
Oh, well, I'm representing the greatest generation. Here. No, I'm John Wyatt Greenlee. I am the surprised eel historian on Twitter. I am the world's foremost eel historian, which is a lot of fun and not something I saw coming, but it's what I am. I also draw maps. That's what I do for a living, is I draw maps on commission. So if you need a map, hit me up. I'll put Neil on it. It'll be great.
Also, announce to the crowd your drink of choice this evening.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I'm drinking a Canadian whiskey called Pendleton, which is quite tasty.
Okay, so if you're listening at home, or in your car, if you're listening, I guess that makes sense, right? Just obviously you know what? Just whatever, go with it. I said everybody has to be drinking tonight because of this film, so that's what we're doing. Leah Lagrone, how are you?
Yeah,
welcome to the pod.
I'm good. Thank
welcome
you.
to back for the third time. What are you doing here tonight? And what are you drinking?
What am I doing here? I'm a historian of a progressive era. And I just kind of bullied my way into this particular podcast. After you sent me that meme, I was like, dude, we have to do a podcast on the Goonies. But I'm a historian of prostitution. I am the public history director at Weber State in Ogden, Utah. And like any good exennial, I was listening to Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg on my way to the gym this morning, and I had gin and juice stuck in my head, so that's what I'm having.
That is not a song on the soundtrack, but we will get into the soundtrack later. Jamie Goodall, welcome. You and I have been talking about having you on the pod for the longest time. I finally got you on here. We're going to have you back later on for some other pirate-themed stuff. You want to introduce yourself, what you're doing, and like what your drink of choice is?
Sure. So I'm a pirate expert. Technically, my PhD is in history, but everyone who knows me tells all the people I meet that I have my PhD in piracy. So
yes,
that's what I majored in.
Pirate history doctorate.
We have the same tattoo, actually, Jamie.
Oh, which one?
I got the East India Trading Company right here.
English. Yep.
Right.
English here, Dutch here.
No, mine is on my very large bicep, but go on.
I don't have very large biceps, so I just went on.
I do, and if your name is Craig Bruce Smith, you talk about them all the time. But go on.
Love.
He's got a thing with my arms. It's so weird. It's like him and Robin.
I have 3 books out on pirates. I have a Nat Geo out on pirates. I was on the History Channel talking about Captain Kidd's lost treasure. But I also write about the most random shit. I have a book chapter in Lessons from Hogwarts where my co-author, Dr. Carrie Spencer, and I talked about Muggleborns as a lens for first generation student mentorship at the college level. And we did the good, the bad, and the toxic. And we did Professor McGonagall, Professor Snape, and Professor Dumbledore. So I like to say that I am eclectic in terms of my research interests.
What are you drinking?
I am drinking. This is my variation of what I found called the One-Eyed Willy. So for you guys can see, my tiki glass has an eye patch. It has a pirate eye patch.
Sweet.
And so I mixed it up to be more along my flavor profile, but it is 2 ounces of Buchanan's pineapple scotch. So it's got that smoky flavor as opposed to a pineapple run. And then it is 1 ounce of coconut rum and 5 ounces of orange juice with a splash of grenadine. So this is my version of a One-Eyed Willy.
I am so happy that you're here. We are going to get into One-Eyed Willy a little bit later on. And I, of course, am what is the leader of the Goonies? I am Sean Astin. Am I I don't know who I am in the Goonies. I am HATM Overlord. I am also drinking tonight. I have an old-fashioned, at least as I said it was, mostly this is a glass of bourbon with some sugar. But inside said glass, if you are watching at home on our new YouTube channel, it's coming June 6th. So if you're watching, it's probably after, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, bourbon with sugar, and I have inside of it a 2 ice cubes in the shape of skulls in honor of the Goonies. I do not recall who gave to me this skull-shaped ice cube maker. I'm certain it was a woman for reasons that are probably obvious. Something along the lines of, we hope are dead. So, alcohol makes the memories go away. So, let's all right, I want to talk about this movie because
Goonies never say die, first of all.
First of all, Goonies never say die. All right, come. So I want to talk about this film because it's so ingrained in our childhood. And there is some historical aspects of this that I do want to jump into. But so much of this, when I think about this movie, it just jumps me back into 1985 when I was, just a little boy, I think 7, 8 years old, 1985 or so. And those memories are very fresh. I remember I would go looking for treasure, just like my brother and I would do 2 things. Like we would pretend the Soviets were invading with Red Dawn. And then we would also do the Goonies. I don't know and I also wanted to be Teen Wolf, but that's because I don't know.
It's a very different childhood than mine.
You know what? I thought Boof was hot. I'm Team Boof. I thought Boof was always the hottest in Teen Wolf. It's just not even close. Like, why he would ever want to get with the other one, Pamela? Like, why? Because Boof was so much hotter. Maybe I've Googled a few times, like, whatever happened to her later on, and if she's single or even in the Colorado area. I don't even know. Let's go back to the Goonies. So, okay, first question. What are your immediate memories? When I said, hey, do Goonies, like, none of you paused and hesitated. You're like, fuck yeah, I'm in on this. So let's start. Leah, what's your first memory? When I say do you have an emotional tie to this film? What's your first memories of this film?
I was trying to think of that. I didn't go see it at the theater, but I watched it over and over and over, I think, when it came out on VHS. But so like you said you pretended that the Soviets were invading. I pretended that I was, a dancer. I pretend because I was
Flash
in dance, but
got a Jennifer Beal thing going on, right? Like
girls,
do you also wailed? Is that like in the?
No, I don't. All right. That was a little above my sexy level. At that age. Yeah. Although I did, my mom did call me out on Madonna's "Like a Virgin" because I was singing it at the top of my lungs. I think in like first grade, second grade. My mom was like, "So, do you know what that means?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "Carry on." So, but I always wanted to be a dancer. And so when Girls Just Want to Have Fun came out, I don't know, that was just even to little girls that really didn't know, what that fully meant. I just knew that it was about girls and, and everything else was about boys. And so I ended up just having that kind of emotional connection. Did not fully understand that the movie was still all about boys, but it did have the song at the beginning. And so somehow, that just connected with me. Also, I was always out, I left, especially in the summer, I left home, in the morning and didn't come back until the evening. My parents never knew where I was.
Did you drink from the fire hose or from the water hose in the backyard?
I did not always, because I just thought that was, I was a little bougie kid and I really wasn't. We were working class, but I didn't like the hot, because I was always the one that didn't wait until the water came all the way out and I got the hot water in the face. Yeah. And so I was always the one that tried to charm my way into somebody's house to get water.
John Wyatt, what's your thoughts on this film? What's your memories of this?
Yeah. So
were you also dancing?
Always.
As a child?
Always. It's how I put myself through college.
There are websites for that now.
Players Club.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah. Well, so, it when you asked about, you want to do the Goonies, I said absolutely yes, because it's like a iconic movie from my childhood. I don't have specific, like, it didn't conjure up specific memories of this scene or that scene. It conjured up like a sense, right? Like a sense of being, like 7 and just like the world is huge and interesting and you can go explore and it's full of possible treasures. So I grew up we moved to Salt Lake when I was 10, but before that I grew up in Charlottesville, Virginia. And we had this big, like 2-acre yard that went down to a creek and a swamp. And then the swamp was like extended off into what had been a pond, but it had been drained by a developer who then ran out of money. So it was just this like endless, for a kid, right? This is an endless like field of imaginative possibilities. And that's the sense that when I thought about the Goonies, that kind of what pulled up for me, that just like sense of not childish, but like childlike wonder at the world, which I think the film, watching it now as an adult, and I hadn't watched it for a really long time, but I think it captures really well in a lot of ways. So, and yeah, I had there's some specific memories of the film, like that last shot of like the ship sort of sailing off into the ocean kind of stood out for me. But yeah, that's what it sort of pulled up for me. This, like, it pulled me back really to myself as like a 7 or 8 year old, wandering around like Leah, like all summer long, just like get kicked out of the house and you go wander in the swamp for 5 hours, and live in your own head for a while. And I really love that.
I feel like we're doing a deep dive into the psyche of you guys as children and being kicked out of the home at an early age. Leah and John Wyatt, if your parents never loved you, and maybe that's what caused you to go into history, to find someone who would. I don't know. We're just talking.
Well, that was a failed effort. Academia will love me.
You know
right?
who will ever love you? The Academy, right? Dean, kiss my ass.
We're always chasing.
Oh
We're
my
always
God.
chasing.
Are we ever, right?
We're always chasing that affection.
Jamie, share with us your childhood haunts and memories, and how are you scarred, and how have you used this film to alleviate those pains along with alcohol?
Tell us about your childhood.
We don't have enough time for me to unpack my childhood, but
the shit we don't. I'm paying for this website service. Let's go for it.
Yeah, you're on his dime, man.
It's called Healing with Jason. Let's go.
I mean, I got some. There's a movie we should watch, and we can talk childhood traumas.
Oh, what is that? Is it Silence of the Lambs? Is it?
Yes. Also,
did you grow up in a well?
Lotion on the skin, right? No, I was born in 87, so I was not alive when this movie came out.
How dare you?
I know. I wasn't even a thought. Right. My parents weren't even married yet when this movie came out. Like, what? But
that's not a requirement,
It gets worse. Well, they weren't even together, right? They weren't even together.
Okay, well, that at least is something of a requirement.
They weren't even together yet. But what's even worse, though, is I did not actually see the Goonies until after my husband and I got married in 2011.
Oh, I actually love this.
I know. I never. Well, so what had happened was, so I have a really, yeah. That
you're like,
yeah,
sure. Yeah,
it was one of those things where we dated for a month and got married. So it's maybe not for everyone, but 13 years and counting, it's working for us.
It's
but
efficient.
He was very upset that my movie repertoire, like my background, was pretty awful. I mean, it was mostly horror flicks and Disney movies. There's no real in between, right? And so there's a number of classics that I still have never seen, but what we did is we bought a movie poster with the scratch off. So every time you see it, you can scratch that movie off and it reveals like a little thing. So I'm working through that. And one of those was the Goonies, but also I still have never seen the Godfather movies. Like it's bad. My movie selection history, but also my parents never watched movies when I was growing up, right? Like that was just not something we did as a family. Like I think I saw Titanic and
I only watched Titanic for the first time like a year ago.
It was like whatever Disney movies my mom could just pop the VHS in and like just let us go. But I'm that weird sort of millennial that even though I was born in 87, my parents sort of raised me and my middle brother as like if we were Gen Xers. It's very weird. So I'm drinking from the water hose, like
smarking Marlboros from like you're 4.
Had no idea where I was 90% of the time until I was in high school, in which case my mom was like, cell phone, figure it out.
Yeah.
But she never really had to worry about me though, because the wildest thing I ever did growing up was in high school. It was senior year. I was in the AP calculus class, and we tutored once a month the math counts students in algebra at the middle school. And the very last day of our tutoring, my 2 friends and I, we skipped. We decided not to go. Like fucking wild, right? What did we do?
Jamie.
I know. Those poor 8th graders. What a horrible person. But you know what we did? We stopped by the gas station. We got sweet tea and soda and snacks. And we sat in the church parking lot on the way to the middle school and listened to the Phantom of the Opera soundtrack. Fucking wild. I know. Rebel.
Damn.
All right. I want to take us through this film. We're going to kind of go sequentially, until we inevitably go way off the course. It's going to happen because I've already brought in Flashdance. So for those of you still here, right? All right, I just kind of wrote down a couple things as we're watching here. Opening sequence, absolute fucking perfection. We see the Fratellis breaking out, right? Do you guys remember that? Like we all watched this recently. Like Leah's like, I watched this like 4 times in the last 3 days.
Yeah.
So
I bought it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I went back to watch this. I was like, holy God, the character introductions on in this show. Within the first 7 minutes, you know everything you need to know about everything. Yeah. And I remember, I think the first time I learned about a 4-wheel drive was when Ma Fratelli is like launching into 4-wheel drives. They go onto the beach. In that, did you guys notice that where the beach is, like, is the exact same spot that they end up at the very end? Mm-hmm. I thought that was interesting.
I mean, I didn't know that the first time I watched it, but after several rewatches, I figured that out.
That's the amazing thing.
I'm not that smart, Jason.
No, but like rewatching this, like every time, the amazing thing is watching this movie now for 40 years, it still continues to show me stuff. And I'm continually just like, wait, that little thing, this little thing, it's just like, it's perfect. All right. I want to talk to you guys about the cast. I was noticing a couple little things in here. First of all, this film stars Samwise Gamgee and Thanos in its own cast. Is this movie not perfectly cast? I mean, every last role is just...
It's brilliant.
It is. It's great.
Do you have a Goonie that you related to more than any, like as a child or now?
Yes. Well, not as a child because I didn't know. But
well, in 2011, how old were you in 2011?
20-something?
Yeah, as a child.
I can't do math right now. It's 9:30 at night. I was born in 87. It was 2011. You tell me the math, but it was 20-ish.
24. Right, go on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But two characters that I just absolutely loved the most when it first came, like when I first watched it. First, Chunk. I mean, Truffle Shuffle. Who doesn't fucking love Chunk?
Hands down.
That is my like mirror image. Like just me and Chunk. I love it. And then also Data. So good. Well, and also because I did when I was growing up watch Indiana Jones, and who doesn't love Short Round? So loved Data.
I have been so afraid to show Temple of Doom on the Sunday night.
It's such a terrible movie, but
is it though? Like
it is.
Yes.
It's so bad.
Yes.
How dare you guys? I love that movie.
So I did my undergraduate in archaeology. Thank you very much. And I feel like I am a very good Indiana Jones aficionado. I thought I was going to be Indiana Jones until I did my degree and realized like that's not how that works, which was very disappointing. But I will take Crystal Skull over Temple of Doom, and that is a hill I will die on because we learned about the crystal skulls in my classes. It was very bizarre.
I feel like just because you've been on History Channel, you've got a predilection to talk about aliens.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even think about that, but now I need to meet that guy. It is destined now, but I will say.
Was William Kidd an alien?
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
No. So I had the very amazing fortune in the job that I'm in to meet Sean Astin. And you're probably thinking, how does a military historian who works for the Army meet Sean Astin, Samwise Gamgee? And the answer is he is a civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army for the state of California. We call them CASAs. And I was writing, it just came out this year, I was writing a brief history of the office of the administrative assistant to the Secretary of the Army. Say that 10 times fast. And the OAA runs the CASA program. The Army loves their acronyms. Now, as part of
what about OPP?
I'm down.
But as part of this program, the CASAs have an annual like reunion or something where past and present civilian aides will come to this reunion at the Army symposium thing. And because I was writing the OAA history, one of the women I did an interview with, an oral history interview with, she was like, do you want to come to the reunion? And I was like, sure, why not? Had no idea that Sean Astin was going to be there. Had no idea that he was a CASA, but I'm there and everybody's talking about how Sean's going to be there. Sean's going to be there. And I'm like, fucking Sean who? Like,
right.
Small
and somebody was like, Sean Astin. And I was like, are you fucking serious? Like you're not just like bullshitting me? And they were like, no, I'm serious. So I got to meet him. I will show you pictures later if you want. And I was talking to him about the books that I was working on, including the Black Sam Bellamy book. And he gave me his email address and he said, I want a 1-pager from you. I think this sounds awesome. We should make a Black Sam Bellamy biopic. So I'm waiting to hear back. But
nice.
Jamie Goodall, you did not immediately reach out to Sean Astin when I asked you to come on the Goonies fucking podcast?
I did.
Oh, okay. No.
I emailed him again.
Thank you.
But also, in my acknowledgement, it says, P.S. to my new friend Sean, Mikey, Samwise Gamgee, ready to make that Black Sam Bellamy biopic.
Oh, I love it.
And then I told him
Nicely
today, I
done.
was like, hey, I'm going to be on a podcast about the Goonies. You should listen to it when it comes out.
Right. It's like, no one's
We'll
asking
see.
about Goonies ever.
He hasn't emailed me back yet, but
All right. If he does, we're re-recording all of this, by the way.
Yeah, all of this.
Save your drugs and get drunk again. It's just like every other night. So when I go, I was like, hey, you guys want to hear a real banger? All right, so there were 2 cows. All right, Leah?
So I did have that teen bop crush on Sean Astin, so had to go to the store and get my little magazine with the center and put it on my wall. But
who else was on your wall alongside Sean Astin? Kirk
no.
Cameron. You were a Kirk Cameron person. You were.
Oh, hell no.
Yes, you were.
Absolutely not. I was a Corey Haim person.
Oh, half the Corys. Wrong Corey in this one. All right.
Yeah, wrong Corey in this one. Sean Astin. I had a big poster of New Edition and a big poster of New Kids on the Block. So
okay, God, I wish Fletcher were like layering in music right now. Like, for like New Edition. Is it Every Little Step I Take? Was that New Edition? We will be there. Every little step. Right. Yeah. For like, oh my God, you guys are so white. Like, it's so, you don't know the words. Like,
I mean, we didn't know any better.
No,
I'm too old for all this, so I don't know what you kids are talking
I did have a Bobby Brown poster.
I was too young for this, so.
Do you have a favorite Bobby Brown song?
Tenderoni and Prerogative. I mean, if we're going, from when I had the poster.
All right, here we're gonna go wildly off. Like we're gonna do an historical intervention here. Favorite Bobby Brown song, John Wyatt. What's your favorite?
Oh man, I have absolutely no idea.
All right, Jamie, what you got?
I don't have one because I never listened to Bobby Brown.
That's fine, because Dr. Herbert's got one. That's all I was trying to get to, and it's the song from Ghostbusters Part 2, right? You guys know the song. I don't know what the name of it is. It's good. So, all right. John Wyatt, who did you relate to when you were a kid on this film?
Who did I relate to?
Yeah, because I think the secret of these is like when you watch these shows, especially these ensemble casts where everyone's got a big role. I think people tend to find someone in here. For the longest time, people have always said, "Oh my God, Jason, you remind me of every role Harrison Ford has ever been in." And I'm like, I know, right? It happens.
Oh, yeah, that's what they say, Jason.
I know. I'm like Rick Deckard in like Blade Runner. It's like, am I a replicant? I don't know.
All right, shut up. I want to talk.
All right, you're so mean.
I know he skipped over my favorite character. I just said that.
I'm sorry, Leah. Go ahead. Let's go back, Leah.
My favorite character was Chunk because he was just hilarious. I mean,
so funny.
The car scene with the blender is perfection, and I will never not laugh at that.
John Wyatt.
All right, so I like the Sean Astin character, right? Because like there's something about the exploring and the sort of enthusiasm, which is great. My favorite character in that movie, and it stayed true, like all of these years later when I watched it last night, is Jake Fratelli.
Ooh.
Oh yeah,
who is like he has such fun with that role.
Robert Davi,
like he sings and he laughs and he's so part of it is like I don't like, one of the things I didn't like about this movie is like it's manic in a lot of ways, and that always kind of gets under my skin. And he's not manic most of the time. He's a little calmer than like everybody else in that film, which I like. I thought it kind of balanced nicely. But yeah, like I like that. I liked him. It was good.
Yeah, and he can sing. He
can actually sing. That guy has a singing career, like a professional singing career.
Yeah, and he's plays a great villain. And one of the things I love about this is like the tone of the. This is a film that is directed at children, right? This is a children's film, and the bad guys are appropriately evil for a children's film. They're not too weak. They're not too hokey. It's like there's just Ma Fratelli's. There's danger, but we know they're perfect. The squabbling brothers. It's just God, they're perfect.
I think my favorite bit with Jake's character though is like when he's listening to Chunk like spin out this like all of the terrible things he's done, and like he's getting more and more into it, right?
Yeah,
and they're sitting there like come on kid, this is great.
He's like dedicated. He's like, I really like this kid, Ma. But I think with the characters, the the bad guys. It is appropriately evil or appropriately bad or appropriate villains for the time, but it's also it has like this little edge, I guess, that we thought that we had that that we had this kind of dark side, but we really didn't know what dark side was. And, we thought we were being bad by staying out all day or sneaking into, an abandoned house or, going down to the creek bed and, throwing rocks at fish or something. Our evil was pretty much like on par with that. And you kind of felt that watching the movie again. You felt like you could be a little edgy, be a little bad, sneak down, lie your way down into the basement of a rundown hotel, a rundown restaurant.
It's worth pointing out here, though, that like the Fratellis are not actually like the prime villains of the film.
Yeah.
No, it's
right?
it's Troy's parents.
It's the rich bastards.
Yeah.
It's the developers with their country club, man.
Yeah, I was going to get into Reaganomics and
we're going to in a
second,
right? Because come to talk about childhood memories, but stay for the critiques on 80s capitalism with Jason, and Jamie, and John Wyatt. You had no idea where you're going to go deep. Like, it's just going to. Can I also jump in? Like, I was always a mouth guy. Like of the Corys, I was a Corey. What do you mean you can see that? Damn, Leah. Like, that's coming to your podcast and throw stones at your face the whole time. Awesome. Yay, friendship. I thought I always loved Mouth. I did not until much later in the advent of like subtitles really catch all the shit he was saying to the housekeeper. He is demented as fuck.
That was really funny. My kids, I watched this with my kids last night with my two boys. They're age 9, almost 10, just about 10 and 13. And they both cracked up about that.
Well, what I love is that the woman who plays Rosalita is actually, she's from the U.S. She speaks perfectly fluent English. She's the one who wrote those lines for Corey to say. And
oh my God.
She coached him through how to pronounce a lot of those words because he'd never really like spoken Spanish before. And so she did all of that, which I thought was hilarious, that she's like writing these lines as if a young, like preteen boy is going to be saying this stuff to her.
Always separate the drugs. Always separate the drugs.
There's an aspect here because all of these characters, even though they're children in this film, are just a little bit older than we were, right? So as a child, I remember kind of even looking up to like Mikey and Mouth, and everybody was like, they were just, and like Brand, right? Josh Brolin was like 16. He was like old. It's so weird to see him now. I follow him on he actually has a really terrific Instagram, comes across as a really cool guy. But to see him as a child now, as we are well on, as we're well older, it's like it's just, you get to see this different aspect of them. And I don't know. I loved Mikey for a couple different reasons. Mouth for a few different reasons. He's so silly and devious at first, playfully, right? But then you get to the scene in the well where he's like, "Well, this is my wish," and I'm taking. He had this moment where he's like, I'm taking this back, and I felt like, we talk about Bran, and and we talk about Brand and Andy. I feel like it was actually the real love story here is Mouth and Steph. But I want to get into that a little bit later. I think that's who makes it.
I loved Steph too. I loved just her attitude.
Can we go in and ask this? This is one of the things I did note. It's like, all right, Team Andy, Team Steph. Jamie, which way are you going on this?
Oh man, that's tough. I'm gonna go Team Steph just because I feel like she's more like what I would have been like if I wasn't so terrified of getting into trouble all the time as a child. That like I wanted to be like that funny, quick-witted, quirky friend.
Leah, Andy or Steph?
Yeah, I'm Team Steph, but I am not Steph. Like I wasn't when I was young. I was the same way. I was more of, the cheerleader, the dancer, the one who wanted to be the good girl for her parents and and always doing the right thing. But there was just something that I loved about Steph. And I think that's what I wanted to be like, but I couldn't. And so there was something, in me. It came out like post 40. I'm very much like that now.
Men have that too. It's called Listen to Bruce Springsteen. John Wyatt?
Yeah, so I would say Steph also, and it's because she has her own actual like independent personality, which I like, right? So Andy's personality is largely tied to her being like the rich kid's boyfriend at first, and Brand's boyfriend later, and then the middle scene where she gets to do all the girly things like squeal and like freak out in the dark, and then have to be rescued. Like she's got this like really stereotypical set of roles that she like processes through, and Steph gets to be Steph, like an actual realized person, and I like that.
She gets the best one-liners too. That scene where Andy's like she's like, "Come on, you are in the clouds and we are in the basement." It's
right.
like she's got the.
I like my favorite one was just because I could identify it. I feel like I'm babysitting, but not getting paid.
Oh
my God, I wrote that down. Yeah.
Yep.
So she's great.
That felt like the producers like leaking out into the script there a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and like when Andy in the dark kisses Mikey instead of Bran, but she doesn't know that that's what happened, but Steph does. And
Steph does, yeah.
Steph's like, you should try it with your eyes open next time. It's a totally
whole different experience.
A whole different experience.
I thought Martha Plimpton when I was younger was actually prettier. Carrie Green was great. But I was like, Steph was like, when I was a kid, I was like, wow, Steph, and Booth, Teen Wolf, Booth.
Well, she was in what's her name? Carrie, the one that played Andy. She was an 80s. I mean, she was the kind of the 80s girl in a lot of the movies. She was in Lucas
with Corey Feldman.
Yeah, with Corey Feldman and Corey Haim.
The Corey's, yeah. Both of them, right?
So, but we need to talk about the screams too, because John White brought up the screaming, and I think that this, like, with the girls, young women, and some of the other things going on, I think they had you have to incorporate the screams, the 1980s movies screams. You can't have women in the film or girls in the film without them screaming.
Especially if there's things that are like stereotypically like gross, like the dead fish or,
the bats.
I don't know, a dead body, but
the bats or the skeleton, right?
Yeah. All right, I want to jump into this. We were talking a little bit earlier about what pushes all of this. I think Leah said this earlier. Like, our prime villains are not actually the Fratellis. The Fratellis is the crush. It turns out our villains are the Reaganomics.
Yeah, the villains aren't the people who killed folks.
Right.
Yeah, okay, so
they're the real evil bastards.
All right, so I'm wondering, first of all, in this movie, like, for the longest time, is the driver behind why I've always wanted to live in the Pacific Northwest. Like, as a child, I was like, this place looks amazing. How do all of these people lose their houses at once? I'm still baffled by, like, all of the people are going, like, and they all seem to be upstanding folks. So I'm wondering, unless, Mikey's dad's got a coke habit or something like that on the side. I mean, it was the 80s, but how is this working? I did do some math.
So eminent domain, when did eminent domain laws come into?
Maybe, but like that doesn't seem to be the case with at least the Brandon Mikey's house, right? Like, because they're just clearly behind on their mortgage. It's like, well, we can get this taken care of if our dad gets his next 400 paychecks or whatever, right? It's like, It's a money issue, not an eminent domain
I didn't
issue.
even think about that. I thought that they were just trying to like buy out the I didn't think about that.
I mean, the thing about the Goonies, right, being in the Goondocks was that they're in what was considered, at least in this part of the Pacific Northwest, the poor part of town, right? Or like the less economically privileged. And so, like with Mikey and Brand's dad, them being behind on their mortgage, or it could be anything like maybe some of the families were renting the properties and therefore the people who owned them were selling them. And so I always imagined after watching it that all these people losing their homes at the same time had more to do with the developers scooping stuff up, taking advantage of people who were in vulnerable positions. And it made me think, I was not out of wanting to, but trying to sleep and my spouse watching Better Call Saul, there was a whole period where like they're trying to like this one developer is trying to take this one person's property and they're the only holdout. And there's all this weird legal maneuvering and wrangling that this developer, this company is using to basically like force this person's hand. So even if they weren't behind on their mortgage, or even if they weren't in a position of like, they were saying, I don't want to sell, companies just tend to have more capital for things like lawyers and for finding these weird ass little like laws and loopholes and stuff. So
I did some research actually on this for the very first, like I put forth effort on the podcast.
You knew what the questions were going to be.
I mean, I did on the pirate stuff.
I mean, you have a degree in piracy. Like, really? I have a degree in cows. Like, we're not bringing that
I thought
up
about
on
the
this
maps.
show.
But
Right,
I don't have a degree in
there was no
Northwest
prostitution. Well, I guess there was. You know,
so I went back and looked at average home prices in Astoria, Oregon in the 1970s and 80s. So this film was set in 1985, or at least in 85. So we'll go from there. Average home price in Astoria, Oregon in, say, 1975, 10 years earlier, is $32,900. 10 years later, it's $70,600. It's doubled in 10
property
years. Property values, taxes. Like the idea that maybe these shady guys who want to build this golf course is what they're saying, right? There's something going on here with property values, and these, like you guys were saying, people are clearly trying to use every last little thing they can do to leverage these poor folks in the Boondocks out of their homes, right? It's clearly about money, because towards the end, when they do get the jewels, they're like, we're never doing this. We're going to, whatever. Like, we've got enough money. I don't know the driving aspect. I don't know that we were ever expected to do a deep dive on the economics of the Goonies. I don't know that's what Spielberg had in mind, but we got you, Steve.
So two small things that kind of occurred to me with regard to this. The one, thinking about the relationship with the people in the Boondocks to like the rest of the town, right? Like I love the fact that the mailboxes in front of the house are labeled us and them.
Them. Oh, I didn't even notice that. Okay.
Yeah. Us is the one mailbox, and the rest of them are just them, which is fun. The other thing is like that's a crappy like geography for a golf course. It really is. It's like that's steep. The whole thing.
They make bad decisions. Maybe they're going to knock down like the entire coastline, because like I have to.
All right, so they're just going to like do like a West Virginia style like.
If I could eliminate cancer, or I could eliminate golf, like we would still have cancer. Like, I hate golf so much. What? Like,
I mean, maybe there was oil in them there hills.
It's like, right. I guess. So, okay. I want to ask you this. I want to fast forward just a little bit to the attic scene, because there are a couple things going on here in the attic, and I'm wondering, first of all, if this movie is what the movie that actually made us all historians. Most of us saw this as children. Like, if it put this nugget in our head, like this idea they get upstairs and it's like this attic of hidden treasures, right? And the music
that's the
is
dream,
playing.
right? To get into an attic and find all the archives.
How many of us did that, right, when we were kids, right, or 23? Where we were hoping to like find the secret. I remember looking for the story about Chester Copperpot, or trying to find the map or anything like that. And the music's just, it's got this perfect music. We're just like, there's always this sense in this film that anything is possible. And it's like Mikey goes from trying to protect everything to handing off the map to Chunk almost immediately. Mikey like completely switches once they get in the attic. He's like, fuck it, we're all in.
Because maps are great, and he wanted it.
I love maps. I love maps so much.
Well, and I think that there's just something mystical about, about an attic, the way that they were always portrayed. If you remember, if you ever saw the movie Flowers in the Attic, that attic was just so huge.
Stole my thunder here. I was going to ask you, is this the best attic in film history?
Flowers in the Attic is the best.
There's some weirder shit going on than maps in Flowers in the Attic. I'm just saying, people are finding their ways around other things in Flowers in the Attics.
But it just kind of
thought that joke would land back.
Put into your brain that attics stored, like all the cool stuff, when, my attic just had, crappy, leftover decor from the 70s that my mom didn't want anymore, or Christmas ornament.
That was my attic too, but my grandmother's attic was amazing. It was like this old 3-story house, and you went all the way up to the attic, and like they'd been shoving stuff in there since like, I don't know,
Christmas paper.
since like the 20s, right? And like it was just like it just everything felt like an excavation into the possible.
Well, I would watch these movies like Father of the Bride or like any of these random movies that had attics, and I was like, I don't know what that's like because I grew up in a single wide trailer, so no attics there.
What's on the roof?
Yeah.
What's on the roof? Absolutely nothing. Maybe an antenna. But like even my grandparents' house, there wasn't an attic. So for me growing up, it was always like storage sheds or like
we had a storage shed in one of our houses. Yeah.
My grandparents' house had the crawl space under the house, which was always like really exciting for us as kids. Until I realized, as I got older, that there were far scarier things than, spiders down there. Things that might actually like kill you, copperhead. I
have a copperhead interjection.
Oh, oof.
Are you ready? Do you guys know what copperheads smell like? If you're listening, we're talking about the venomous snake, the copperhead. Do you guys know what copperheads smell like?
No, never gotten that close.
Copperheads smell like cucumbers. And I can tell you this because I was in the backyard in my great-grandmother's garden when I was a kid. And Mema, Lola Ray Chadwick, Mema, says to me, she's like, Jason, smell these cucumbers. You're out in the woods and you smell these cucumbers. There's a copperhead nearby. Okay. And I'm like a kid, still a kid. And I'm out in the woods many years later and I smell cucumbers. And I'm like, look down, there's copperhead. Copperheads. And then I like fact check this. I'm like, do copperhead snakes smell like?
That's terrifying.
Copperheads are fun. Copperheads are fun. Why? Are you anti-cucumber?
Well,
I don't even know that I know what a cucumber smells like. Like I don't.
John, might I suggest a salad sometime? Sorry, I either just said this.
I've eaten lots of cucumbers. I don't think I've ever paid attention to the smell.
Wow, you need to slow down, enjoy life a little bit.
I was at my grandparents one time and we were going to walk and go pick blackberries and my dad and my uncle and my middle brother were ahead of us. And it was me and my grandma, my mom and my youngest sibling kind of held back. And all of a sudden, like we just see my dad pick my middle brother up by like the shirt and just fling him, just like fucking shot put that kid backwards. And we're like, what the hell? Right. And they come running back. And apparently my brother almost stepped on a baby copperhead. And so it was like, my dad was like picking him up before the copperhead could like strike him. And after that, I was like, nope, absolutely not. Nope. No, thank you.
Jamie, I have a pirate question. We're going to get into actual history now, into this history podcast. For those listening who are still like 52 minutes and 5 seconds in. Okay, here's the thing that bothered me then and bothered me now. One-Eyed Willie.
Yes.
He's a Spanish pirate?
Allegedly.
Okay, what's he doing in Oregon?
All right, so here's the thing. If there were going to be pirates in the Pacific Northwest, they probably would have been Spanish pirates just because the Spanish, at least in, say, the 16th, 17th century, right, they pretty much run the Pacific coastline. They have all the establishments, the outposts and all of that stuff. I mean, they're spending a lot of money fighting off. I didn't know this until I got into grad school, but like they're fighting off the fucking Russians in like the 17th century. What? And so sense. If, because
we have a Red Dawn connection now. If they're fighting with the Russians, I'm just saying, what if?
Right? Maybe he was Russian. So when I first watched it, and I was thinking like One-Eyed Willie, when I first did like a deep dive back then into Pacific Northwest pirates, there's not a whole lot because a lot of it would have been like the Spanish pirates. And unfortunately, I'm not well versed enough in Spanish to have done that much of a deep dive. But I do know that in 1579 or 1589, I think it was 1579, Sir Francis Drake made allegedly this like stop up along the Pacific Northwest just south of an Oregon town. And so I think this sort of like spawns a lot of the legends of like pirates in that region. In addition, the Spanish are also dealing with the incursions of native peoples who are using their canoes along the coastlines to try to do various attacks. And so, of course, the Spanish consider those people pirates, even if the native peoples did not consider themselves that way. They're just defending their homeland. But one of the other, there's a legend, and I don't know enough about him, Iron Jim Sallow, was allegedly like a 16th, 17th century pirate who may have buried treasure in an area near Seattle. And just given the descriptions of this legendary Iron Jim, he sounds a lot like the One-Eyed Willie character, right? This idea of this guy who is evading capture. People are desperately trying to hunt him down. And so he makes this pit stop in the Pacific Northwest area and offloads and then disappears, right? So if you read there's not a lot because I don't think there's any historical records of this Iron Jim, but that's, I think, where One-Eyed Willie comes from. But pirates may have been predominantly in the Atlantic and then the Indian Ocean and South China Seas and that sort of region. But there's nothing to say that like pirates didn't make their way along the Pacific coastlines. I think it's just there wasn't a lot there at the time that pirates are in their golden age, right?
And this was a question I had for you, actually, Jamie, because this is one of the things that annoyed me, or I don't know if it annoyed us.
You got
one
annoyed
of the
at
questions
the
I had
Goonies,
about
John Wyatt. Really?
I get annoyed at everything. Don't worry about it.
You got annoyed at the Goonies. All right.
Yeah. So
Curmudgeon.
it was a question I had, right? Because like this question of like, what is this pirate ship doing there? Because like, this is not an area with heavy trade traffic. So like that's the point of piracy, right? Is you have to have other ships to rob and plunder and like. So I get maybe he's escaping, but like the idea that like I was curious about this idea, like would there in fact have been pirates in this part of the world at that time? Because I couldn't see the trade traffic to feed that kind of
maybe
radical
furs.
activity.
You're opening up the fur trade.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're not using the trade routes the way that like you would in the Atlantic because that's a major hub. It's not like the Indian Ocean where there's a lot of traffic going on. And so any piratical activity that would have been happening in that region are people who are fleeing the Caribbean or fleeing the South American coastlines and trying to get away from whatever authorities are in the area. And one of the things about especially the Pacific Northwest is even though the Spanish have a pretty strong hold over the Pacific coastlines, they don't have as strong a hold the further north you go. Right, which is why you have groups like the Russian who are trying to infiltrate into areas like modern day Alaska and stuff. There's all these random things. I mean, the Spanish have to deal with the Russians all the way up through the American Revolution. It's so weird. So it's more a hideaway, I would say, than it would have been an area for activity itself. And whatever activity is happening is just going from one outpost to another using the coastline. And so maybe there's some piracy happening in that way, but by and large, no, it's not your first choice, right? As a pirate haunt.
I have another question here. So Willie, beaches the ship inside this cave, right? Supposedly on purpose. He has one eye. Is this really not a question? He has no depth perception. Maybe he's just a really bad captain.
It's a little column A, The thing is, if you only have one eye, how long have you only had the one eye? Because eventually...
Long enough to have a moniker.
I said long enough to have a bespoke eye patch.
Right. And so eventually your eyesight will adjust its depth perception based on the fact... Yeah. So, obviously the first, I don't know how, I couldn't give you a time period, but, at first, if you've lost an eye, you're going to have issues. But eventually your body will start to adjust to accommodate for that lack.
I'm doing the rest of the pod the rest of the way.
Yes. Well, you should have told me. I would have sent you an eye patch.
Oh, yeah. All right.
So there is pretty rampant evidence in the film, the latter part of the film, of his success as a pirate.
Yeah.
So
all the gold.
So that sort of argues against your thesis that he's just sucks at this. I
didn't say he sucks at being a pirate. I say he sucks at navigating. He did kill everybody on his ship, except for one person apparently. All right, I want to move on for a second. We talked a little bit about the music. Cyndi Lauper's Good Enough. Impossible to hear this song. You cannot dissociate this song and this movie and the scene of them taking off with their bicycles. Cyndi Lauper, better or worse? Are we Team Cyndi Lauper or Team Madonna? 1985.
Oh no, I'm totally Cyndi Lauper.
Cyndi.
John what?
Madonna.
Oh, I'm gonna go Cyndi as well. I remember Cyndi Lauper and Captain Lou Albano. Remember he played her dad, right?
I love Madonna, and I grew up. My grandfather used to work for a local dump or trash facility, and one of the areas was like people would just donate stuff, and he randomly found somebody had donated a VHS, which was just all of the music videos for Madonna's Immaculate Collection.
Oh, rock
I didn't
on.
know that they
Nice.
made.
Okay.
So I would watch that all the time. But there was something about Cyndi Lauper about just being different in terms of like, I don't know, like funky hair and
Is the Cyndi
bracelet.
Lauper video in this movie the only time we see color television? Like television shows up a bunch of other places, but I think it's all black and white other than that.
I think it's the Errol Flynn stuff, right?
Well, yeah. So Sloth is watching Captain Blood, which is a 1935 film, so it's in black and white.
But at the start of the movie, Mouth is watching. I don't know what it is, but it's a black and white car chase kind of crime thing that fits with the escape from jail.
Yeah, and it kind of hits into the working class out, because I remember growing up at that time period. A lot of us still, like my Cajun babysitter, Mom Da, did not have have command of the English language, but she also did not have a color TV. We only could watch black and white TV sometimes when she did not make us go outside and kill chickens, which is a story I can actually tell at a later point in time, but I'm not haunted by that. All right, moving on. Troy, worst human being ever. What do we think about Troy?
Stereotypical douchey.
Yeah, white dude, bro.
I want to come back to Troy at the very end of this. I want to come back because I want you guys to start thinking now about what our characters are doing today in 2020, like what they're doing. That was the only
Troy was part of their insurrection.
I think Troy's a Fox News host.
Yeah, I think he stormed the stormed the castle.
I love that. Troy stormed the Capitol. I love this.
Storm the Capitol, but yeah, he's definitely
he was holding tiki torches in Charlottesville.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
We're going to come back to the rest of the cast. Keep this in mind.
Okay.
The thing I thought was interesting about Troy, right, is he has this sort of like karmic arc in a bit, right? Like, so he tries to kill Brand, essentially.
A little bit. I mean,
by driving him off the road.
The murder.
It's a slight
bit of murder.
It's
a little bit of murder.
It's a soft murder.
So, but he, by all rights, should be fucking dead from having like had his toilet explode under him and like ramming his head into the ceiling.
Oh,
right.
First of all, it's just a super bidet, but go on.
Right. Okay. All right. That's fantastic. So he has this like he tries to kill, and they try to kill him, and then like he evens out a little bit. I think that he probably like manages like rent to own center somewhere. I think he probably doesn't succeed in life the way that he would like to, and the way that he expects to.
Do any
in
of
part
us, John
because
Wyatt?
So he lost the family money somewhere.
Well, yeah. So in part because I think that like this deal doesn't go through and things go bad for his family, and like I think he winds up like angry and an alcoholic, and like managing a rent to own center in like Tacoma or something.
Yeah.
And he looks back to his glory days when he like, that time I almost killed that kid. Yeah.
Yeah, when they peak in high school, they always look back.
But this also suggests to me why he would be the kind of person that would like get down a in rabbit hole and go storm the Capitol, right? Like, because he's mad and he doesn't have anywhere to put it, so he puts it on
those commie
liberals and
liberals
immigrants and all the rest of it. Yeah, academics and damn academics.
And
fuck those
the
guys.
working class. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm watching this film, and the kids are going deeper and deeper, first into the restaurant, and then down into the caverns and stuff like that. I keep thinking, you guys pointed this out earlier, how entirely plausible this was, because like you went outside, you had 12 hours solid. You could do whatever you want. That was totally yours, right? And as a kid, when we'd go to my dad's house, me and my brother and my two stepsisters would constantly go into old abandoned houses looking for shit. We did too. Like,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how did we survive? Meanwhile, me as a parent, I'm like texting my kids like every 4 seconds. Like, I'm the parent that was like, "Are you okay, buddy? I love you so much. Be careful." Whatever. So when I watched it with Connor, I think one of the first times, he was like, "So they were just able to like go out and like nobody asked them, hey, where are you going?" Right. Like that. He goes like, "That doesn't make any sense. Like, how does nobody know where they are?" There's no phone. He just couldn't wrap his head around.
No, right? Because
growing
being
up,
able to leave the house and being able to leave the house and, ride your bike to another part of the town or down
wasn't
a
that like
road.
part of our growing up was like
Oh,
you would get on your
absolutely.
bike and you would know where the other kids were at certain points of the day. Like my brother and I would ride 2 miles to where my grandparents lived, and like that's where all the neighborhood kids were, and you would just kind of know there'd be like 5 or 6 spots where the kids were.
Well, you would see bicycles in the yard,
know,
right?
right?
You
Yeah.
knew where everybody was going to be, or at least a handful, like you said, a handful of places, and then you would just ride your bike for miles and checking those places, and yeah.
That's really hard to do at this point. When I lived in New York, we had like a kind of a forest behind the property on our house, and I used to let my kids like go and wander and get lost because like it was relatively bounded. Like I could have found them if I needed to, and I thought that was important. But like other people don't work that way. And a couple of years ago, my younger son was walking up to the house from the library, which was like a block and a half away. Okay. And somebody followed him to our house, then called the police to come like knock on the door and check on him because he had been walking up the street by himself. Like this is like a small upstate New York village. Like what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, and I wanted to talk. I wanted to ask the policeman that.
Right.
Yes, I wanted to ask the policeman, like, what's more problematic here, right? Like the fact that my kid was walking home from the library, or that some rando like followed him into my house,
right.
And which of us are you talking to here, and why?
Right.
So yeah.
And I mean, I lived, when this movie came out, I lived in Longview, Texas, so East Texas.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
Pretty part of Texas.
It's a pretty part of Texas, and we lived by a lake. It was called, Hidden Forest Lake in this little neighborhood. We had the woods behind us where, my dad actually illegally hunted one time. And, and I only say that because I was traumatized because he strung the deer up on my swing set. But
you got to eat the deer.
Yeah, I guess so. But
Okay,
it was
delicious.
It was a little traumatizing, but we stayed in those woods all the time. We went out to the dam. We, stole flat bottom boats that were pulled up onto the side of and got in them and rode out.
That's actually the plot of Southern Comfort, a film in which a bunch of National Guard guys get like hunted down by Cajuns in Louisiana in 1982. You were in Texas. I'm sure this was fine. Go on.
It's pretty close to Louisiana, honestly.
A little bit.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Very close to Louisiana.
We've seen maps, John Wyatt.
Yeah, Shreveport was our go-to spot. But
so sorry about that.
It was we did all of that, and never came home. And and there was a couple of times. Well, I had trouble letting Connor walk to, because he really wanted to walk to middle school. And he was like, I can do this, Mom. I mean, there was a couple of times that he, almost got hit in the little circle trying to walk across it to go to school. But that was tough.
And he learned, didn't he?
Yeah, he learned. But it was really, really tough for me because, I mean, we did live in Fort Worth at the time. And so it was the city and, and any other time that I had said, hey, you want to go ride bikes or let's go do this? He's like, no, I'm good. Cause video games. And so it was just we still had kids come over to the house and play video games, but it wasn't kids coming over and ringing the doorbell and, and then everybody just getting on their bikes and going like we did.
Yeah. I wonder, so I'm watching through here, I'm like, would you have gone, like, once they figure out where the water goes, would you have gone down into the cave?
The water slides?
No,
absolutely.
like when they're in the restaurant.
From like the basement of the hotel,
from the basement of the
restaurant.
As a kid, yeah, I absolutely would have.
Yeah. Jamie?
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, probably.
I played in culverts. We thought that was fun.
Oh my God, yes.
So with the caveat that I would have checked to make sure I thought I could have gotten back out first. But like, yeah,
I don't think
100%.
I don't think I would have even checked. I think I would have just been like, oh, cool, a hole. I'm going in.
No, I would have needed an escape route. Like I would have had to know that I could get out in some form or fashion.
Yeah, there are those guys that go out they go cave exploring. I read about one guy recently who like got stuck and then he just died, like stuck in the position, and they sealed him in the cave.
That's like right across the Salt Lake Valley from me. That's Putty.
Oh, you know this, right?
Nutty Putty Cave. Yeah.
Don't need to go in there. It's not a cave anymore, so it's got stopped up with a human body.
Nutty Putty Cave. See, I'm still new to Utah, and I don't know any of the. I don't go up there.
Well, it makes me think too. Like, so when I saw this meme recently. As a millennial, like we were taught, like, don't talk to strangers, don't do this, that, and the other, and like we were taught it so well that we don't answer the door and we don't answer the phone. And
Absolutely not. I am not answering if I don't know you're coming.
So it's one of those things where, like, had I been like in a situation where the Fratellis where they're like, I saw them and they like grabbed us and then they were like, are you good? And I escaped. I'm not going back.
Would have kept escaping.
I would have kept going back. Like, I would have just been like, I'm going home now because that is stranger danger. You will die.
So I'm kind of coming up with this off the top of my head, but we lived in kind of this contradiction. Just saying that, our parents told us to be safe and, like, don't talk to strangers, don't accept, candy or anything from strangers, watch out for the white van. But this is like right kind of in this early stages of the satanic panic or any other kind of moral panic at the time. But you still had, like with me, two parents that worked. And so I was a latchkey kid. And so there's these like two things that you're dealing with. You are 7 and 8 years old with a key hanging around your neck, and you have to walk from your elementary school to your house and let yourself in and then go make yourself a peanut butter, sandwich and sit down and watch cartoons or something. And you're there until your parents get home at, 6:37, 8 o'clock. And so there was this kind of trust in us, but not fear in our parents that stopped them from doing that. But they trusted us to make those decisions.
Is it like one of the things we talk about though is like how we all, as either baby X or elder millennials, have this real fear of raising our children in the same way that we were raised, right?
Because I think we saw all of that.
We did, but we survived. Like, and I remember when Jack was born, my older son, who loves this movie, by the way, I was like convinced, like, how does any child make it to adulthood? I kept having kids. I had two kids, but I was like, because I was like, I need to make sure one of them was survives.
I think we were also raised, though, with the idea, because our parents came from, like, supposedly the greatest generation and then boomers, and they were always raised with that idea that your kids have to do better than you did, right? That they have to have a better life than you had. And so we had that. I think that we kind of had that ingrained in us as well. And then we started questioning, wait a minute, why did our parents just like let us go out and do whatever we wanted? We also knew everything that we did, and we didn't want our children doing those same things.
But my parents are Gen Xers technically, right? So when does Gen X start? When is 65, right?
65, yeah.
My mom was born in 65 and my dad was born in 67. So my parents are Gen Xers.
Mom's older than your dad?
Yeah.
You go, boy.
They got married 4 days after his 18th birthday. And they made it 26 years until stuff.
Yeah.
Childhood trauma. Which happened when I was an adult.
Brought to you by Buffalo Trace tonight's episode.
Oh, man.
Very nice.
Are we getting refills? I need a refill.
I'm upstairs. I can't do a refill.
I do too. I'm downstairs. I have the same problem. Are you? You're not in my upstairs, are you, Leah? Because we could just.
Yes. You're in my basement.
We were actually, John White and I were talking. It was like, wait a second, you guys are like 24 miles apart.
I know. I don't even know why we should totally have coffee.
That's the Utah thing to do.
Hey, it's okay. Hey.
It's the anti-Utah thing to do.
It'll be okay.
Yeah.
I got a question.
No, hold on. because I wanted to go back to something. Yeah, I want to go back to something Leah said. Right, this idea that like you're coming out of a generation, your parents want better for you than they had, right? And I think it's an interesting moment, right? That part of that becomes constraint rather than freedom, right? Like the better than we had means like safer and less able to do stuff, right?
Absolutely.
I hadn't thought about that before, but it's an interesting pathway to take, right? Rather than being like, better is more freedom and more sort of self-reliance. I've tried really hard with my kids to let them to like be kind of hands off in that respect, to let them go, to push them even to go out and do things and not let me know where they are, sometimes. But also, like my 13-year-old has a cell phone and he's supposed to call me when he's going from like point A to point, like, and he does, which is good. But like there weren't cell phones when I was a kid. My parents never knew where I was, and I turned out me. I don't know about fine, but I turned out me.
I think we were also inundated with, all of the moral panic, the satanic panic stuff too, because we were, we only had the 3 channels. My parents couldn't afford like HBO or any of that kind of stuff, and so every night it was the PSA. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are?
Yes. Yeah.
And the PSA, and then before that it was all the news of the fear of kids being snatched up by people in white vans with no windows, and
very much so the panel van.
And kids being, I think that was it in Minnesota, like or somewhere around that kid there was this group of boys that were out on their bicycles, and they disappeared, and they never found their bodies until, I don't know,
I wonder if Lost Boys was a response to that, right? Remember in the movie Lost Boys, like there's like all of like these kids that are going lost. It's obviously a vampire film. We know what happens to them, but like I'm wondering if part of that panic is like encouraging films like that about missing children to get made.
And of course, like that's part of the lesson of this movie too, right? Like everything turns out okay, and it's fun when you're a kid to watch it, but like also like, what happens to these kids when they go out by themselves all the time? Like Brandon gets run off the road. All
Brandon's
of them
totally getting laid at the end of this. I'm just saying it works out fine for him and Andy.
Sure, but that's another parent problem.
I'm going to put a pin in that because I'm coming back to that.
So like right, like they get almost kidnapped. They get almost kidnapped by a gang of murdering counterfeiters multiple times. They get
his hand blended.
Oscar gets his hand blended. They get shot at. They get stuck down a well. Like they're playing with dynamite. Like there are a ton of like really problematic things that happen when you stop paying attention to your kids and just let them wander in the world. Like, okay, sure, they found a treasure and got fabulously wealthy this time.
But they can't tell the difference between dynamite and a candle.
No, they cannot. And next time they might not be so lucky. Next time they might be like, I don't know, stolen away by bank robbers or something. You never know.
Well, Data, all of his like gadgets, like
Pinterest
those
apparel,
could go wrong
as his stats does at the end, right?
Yeah.
All right. Is this the greatest booby trap film of all time? Think about the contestants here. We've got this
Raiders
movie,
of the Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Home Alone.
Home Alone is
Platoon.
Raiders of the Lost Ark is good though too, but Home Alone. I don't think it's the greatest. No.
Like I was noticing as I was rewatching it yesterday, the early scene when they go to after Chunk does the truffle shuffle, sets up the booby trap stuff where they follow. They set all of this up. Really, it's like this movie's very smartly made. There's a lot of callbacks. There's a lot of completing the circle in this film that really comes back. It's a really smart film.
No, it is like the fact that the first thing that Chunk says when he shows up is, "Hey, you guys." I love that.
Oh my god!
Hey, you guys. Yeah.
Oh shit!
Like when he's at the gate, he's like, "Hey, you guys, let me in." Right?
Oh my god! And that's easily the most well-known. And that's amazing. Okay, I want to talk about that for a second because the other thing that I love so much about this film being a children's film is the acceptance of sloth.
Absolutely.
This was a film that absolutely teaches young kids to accept people for who they are, for being different, for being disabled. There is never a question that not a single one of those kids ever once makes fun of the sloth. Not one time.
No, and someone who looks different or who could seem scary in the beginning actually comes to our rescue. Actually, is our hero. Where it's the others that are actually the bad ones, the ones who dress well, the ones who can
sing opera.
Who sing opera, and those are and the way that this was portrayed, I always loved that. I always loved that sloth. And then of course Chunk at the end.
You're gonna come live with us now.
Like, you're gonna come live with us now. I'm just like, oh, I love that. So
God bless John Matuszak for portraying sloth in this role. I mean, maybe somebody else could have done it, but he just is sloth the most human person in this movie. It is such
absolutely just the joy. Yeah,
oh my God.
To be
every single one of us, you say sloth.
Yeah, just to be abused and chained and still just be joyous.
Kept his humanity.
Yeah, kept his humanity. And really, really came to the rescue. Really was the hero of the movie, I think.
Yeah.
And anybody who can appreciate 1930s pirate films really is like a treasure, because they are something.
Did you guys ever try making your own booby traps as kids?
So I wanted to come back to your booby trap question, Jason.
Okay, go ahead.
You're asking about if it's the greatest booby trap movie of all time. And I've been thinking about it while I've been talking. And I'm going to say no. I think out of the three we listed, I would put it as third. We talked about Raiders of the Lost Ark and Home Alone and Goonies, right? Okay. So it has the least effective booby traps out of all three movies, right?
Okay,
so
fair.
Raiders of the Lost Ark has multiple, that set of booby traps at the beginning causes multiple deaths, including the guy who comes with him, right? Home Alone, eventually they get in, but like the booby traps in Home Alone thwart the intruders again and again and again and again. But everybody gets through, other than like Chester Copperpot, everybody gets through the booby traps in the Goonies without really too much trouble. So like I would put it as third in that list simply based on lethality.
All right, fair enough. We get through.
Oh, I thought somebody would push back on that, but
no, I don't. It's fair. Like I hate Home Alone. I don't like it. It's not a movie that I like. I don't like.
I mean, it's not my favorite, but it did spawn 8 variations thereafter, and all of them have very elaborate and
Does
epic.
this movie make Home Alone possible because of its children? No, think about it, right? Because the gadgets are such a part of the Home Alone story. I'm just trying to make connections. I fucking hate that movie. I do not want to watch it. Like. I will if I have to, but I watched A Christmas Story for the first time a couple of years ago. It's so bad. It's just
it was
awful.
Again one of those classics.
You're a 47-year-old man. You should not have to watch anything you don't want to, man. Just the look of confusion on your face.
What were you gonna say? Oh, here's one of the hidden things that I love about this film. Did anyone else catch the callback to Gremlins in this film?
Yes. The things you feed after. Multiply them and you feed them after midnight or whatever it is, right?
That's a movie. My great friend Drew Harrell, I was on the phone with him yesterday. He's like, you have to do that this year for Christmas. It's like, it's absolutely a Christmas film. Christmas is driving it. He's like, you have to do Gremlins. So I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah, that sequence between Chunk and the cop was like,
oh, so good.
It was great.
This Chunk's a complete just fucking liar. All right, I want to talk about when we finally see the ship, because they come down the slide. They turn around, the music hits, and I'm shit you not, I'm getting shivers up and down my arms and my back right now. Can we talk about that moment when we finally see the ship? Jamie, what's your thoughts on that ship?
I mean, it's pretty amazing. When I first watched the movie, obviously I looked into the inspiration for the ship.
Is it a frigate? What is it?
So it's not really a frigate. I want to say it's probably more. I'm not very good at boat styles, by the way. But I'm thinking some variation of a schooner-ish type thing. But it's based on, so the directors, they modeled it after Errol Flynn's ship in a 1940s pirate film called The Seahawk. And what I love, so I did a little look into it. They built this ship It took them 2.5 months to construct it. It's 105 feet long, 7,000 square feet of material to make the sails. And some of the ship's rigging was actually recycled for the Pirates of the Caribbean ship at Disneyland, which at the time in 1985 was being renovated. After the film, and I wish I'd been born because, after the filming ended, they offered the ship to anyone who would take it.
It was right there, just sailing away.
You didn't have to buy it. They just were going to offer it to anybody who wanted it. Nobody wanted it, so they scrapped it.
No.
That would go...
I know. I know.
I've actually... We'll get into Willie in a second. I've actually met One-Eyed Willie. He's in St. Augustine. He's in the Pirate Museum in St. Augustine, Florida. I've seen him multiple times. I've brought my kids to see him. It was Jamie, have you seen him as well? Have you been over there to it? As well. He's the former GM of the Philadelphia 76ers, is like a big pirate fan. He used to have this museum in Key West. Now it's in St. Augustine. And all I can imagine is, God, it would be so amazing to be able to walk in and see that ship somewhere. It's like the ship from Master Commander. Like, there are only so many ships, that you could do. So it's just, God, it's perfect. This movie. Let's go back to the beach. Go ahead, John Wyatt. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's not related to the beach. I was going to ask if it bothered anybody else that, the key that went to the map for finding the location was reliant, among other things, on a lighthouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
the keys from, there's no fucking lighthouse in 1632 or whenever it was.
Perhaps, John Wyatt, there was another feature that the lighthouse was built upon. We can't know.
Well, okay, so
certain.
Depends on how you're defining lighthouse too, because
or a restaurant.
There's a student or a restaurant. There's a student who's working on a paper who actually emailed me recently asking for my assistance. They're trying to do this research into the effectiveness or the effects lighthouses may have had on deterring piracy. And I was like, okay, well, this is a very complicated question because it depends on when you're talking about and how you're defining lighthouse, because the earliest lighthouse in what is the modern day United States is 1689 ish. But there were light boats and light things prior. There were lighthouses way back. But if we're talking about modern lighthouses, what you envision and how they portray a lighthouse, that's very 19th
also
century
what's getting built on the east coast of the U.S. in the 1630s is not the same thing as what's getting built in Astoria, Washington in 1630, right? That sort of annoyed me.
Speaking of
I told you I get annoyed with it.
You're angry there's no eels in this film. Where, when they jump down in the water, are there eels?
There are no eels on
Oregon?
There are no eels on the west coast of the U.S., so I didn't expect that. Yeah, there are lampreys. There's lots of lampreys.
Oh yeah,
but there are no native eels.
Why not?
I think it has to do with the way that they travel when they're babies. So they're mostly carried by the Gulf by major ocean currents, right? So in the Atlantic, they're carried by the Gulf Stream. So which is why they hit the east coast of the U.S. and then Europe. And in the Pacific, the breeding grounds take them to the different kinds of eels, right? They take them to New Zealand and Australia and Southeast Asia and Japan and China, but not all the way around back again. So it's just kind of too far. They find other places to live before they get there.
Also, quick caveat here. I just double checked myself on the type of ship that the Inferno, which is One-Eyed Willie's ship, it is a galleon.
Okay, really?
Which is why it's so large.
It's designed to hold gold.
Which makes sense because those galleons were originally developed by the Portuguese and the Spanish, right? So being on the Pacific Northwest, it makes sense that that's the style of ship that was out there.
Right. And it would have had the ability to hold that much because they were designed entirely like the treasure fleets, the Spanish and Portuguese treasure fleets.
And there's a
galleons.
real significant Spanish trade between Mexico and the Philippines. Is that happening at this point, Jamie? I thought so. Right.
Yeah. I mean, all of that. I mean, the Spanish have pretty much developed a pretty strong trade with their Spanish or with their silver deposits and stuff from South America well into by the mid 1500s. And so,
okay.
I mean, the English had a very late start when it comes to the whole colonization and piracy and all that stuff. The golden age being, 1650-ish. I mean, this is over 100 years after the Spanish and the Portuguese have already colonized the so-called, New World, right?
Here's a question I have for you, which is when we finally see Willie, he's sitting there at his table looking up, How does Willie die? He's killed everyone else around him. Does he go seppuku? Does he just sit in his chair until he dies? Does he kill himself? I mean, we know one person gets out.
Single bullet.
Oh, I hadn't thought they might have just shot him.
Marooned. He marooned himself, essentially, right? Like, he's killed everyone around him.
Not a cool
He's
guy.
marooned himself.
Trapped him in a cave and killed everybody. But go on.
No.
This is the thing I didn't understand about the ending is that so the final booby trap that presumably Willie devises is the one that like springs the ship to freedom.
Like, why not just
Why didn't you do that, man? Like, you spent years digging all these tunnels.
Because they were being chased by the English. If the English were waiting for them to get out immediately. To come out, they're dead men.
But like, okay, in the first week, sure. Like, I mean, they were there for years, right? Because they dig all these tunnels and this whole story. Anyway, it doesn't have to make sense, but it was one of those points of things that kind of made me curious.
But maybe he wasn't sure that last booby trap was actually going to work, right? Maybe he died before he could test his theory, right? And so my thinking is either he shot himself because he went stir crazy because he killed everybody else, or lead poisoning.
Maybe I was wondering about a combination of vitamin D deficiency and scurvy.
Yep, scurvy. Drinking out of a lead tankard, gave himself lead poisoning.
All right, here's my question. We get to the beach. Everyone's happy. What happens to our characters? So I asked you to think about this a little bit earlier on. What happens to the Goonies years later? Who did the Goonies become in 2024?
So we're doing like a Sandlot kid. We're doing like a Sandlot ending.
So we're all in our mid 40s to late 30s. Jamie was just her birthday the other day. I noticed. I saw that.
37.
Right? All the Goonies now would have been mid 50s to like 60. I think is like what Josh Brolin is now. So here's our question. I'm going to throw some names at you, and you tell me what they're doing these days. All right. I'm going to start kind of backwards here. Brand, Josh Brolin. What's he doing? What happens to Brand?
I don't know. He's working in a mill somewhere.
I was going to say high school PE teacher.
I get the sense that he's like working class, right? He's an electrician, carpenter, something like that. Just whatever. Just working kind of guy. All right. Chunk. What's Chunk doing? And what happens to Chunk? All right. And our Brand,
Comedian.
I'm sorry. We could have went through Brand. Our Brand and Andy's still together.
No. So I would say, like, I have a different take on Brand. I feel like he goes into, I feel like this sort of experience like pushes him into like majoring in business and trying to get a job in investment banking.
You know what? He has some of the best parts of the film when he's like, "Is your mommy home?" He's like, "No." She went to the market to get Pampers for his kids. He does go back at those. He's got a pretty good distrust of those guys. So all right, Chunk. What's Chunk doing? You said stand up, Jamie?
Yeah, I think he's a comedian. I think he reminds me of like on it, in the movie It, Richie becomes a stand-up comedian. Chunk reminds me of that. And he brings Sloth with him, like they're just best buds.
Leah, what's Chunk doing?
I don't know. I just saw him like being a bartender and Sloth is the bar back. Like he owns a bar.
Do you know what Jeff Cohen, the actor, does now, right?
He was a lawyer. He's a
lawyer, right? So he's an entertainment lawyer.
He's an entertainment lawyer. He's literally Kei Hee Kwan's attorney. The guy who plays Data, he's his attorney. So when he won the Best Supporting Actor last year, he specifically thanked Jeff Cohen on stage at the Academy Awards. I love this more than any other part that those two guys have stayed together. And then of course the whole part where like he got to see Harrison Ford for like the first time since, and like both him and Harrison Ford, who is a notable curmudgeon, were like in tears and seeing each other. It made me verklempt.
Hold on, I haven't. You keep skipping me, man.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
you do.
Okay.
It's okay. I forgive you. I think Chunk is like a mid-level civic bureaucrat, and then he goes home and makes like TikTok videos and drinks.
I guess I don't really have high hopes for anybody.
Oh no, I have thoughts.
No, yeah, I think he's like a mid-level clerk in like the water department or something in Astoria. I don't think he goes anywhere.
Yeah, no, I don't think he goes anywhere.
Can I give you my hot take? I think that
It's your show, man.
Mouth and Steph are married, and they've been married twice. They've gotten married, divorced, and remarried.
I like that.
Is he a plumber like his dad? Does he go into the family business?
I think he's a local attorney. He's mouth. He likes to talk.
I was going to say Mouth becomes the mayor.
The local,
Oh, yeah. He's very politician-ish.
He's got a good heart. I think there's something deeper to Mouth than what we see.
Yeah, and I got the sense from him that he was trying to escape his family's the family business, right? Like
trying to be
like the way that he carries himself, the way that he's like become weirdly fluent in 17th century Spanish, and the bit with the coin, right? The wishes, right?
Well, I guess, childhood traumas rearing its ugly head, because I've seen a lot of this, coming from these little tiny towns in East Texas, and a lot of people have big dreams, but 30 years later, 40 years later, they're living in their parents' house. Their parents have passed, and now they're living in that house, and the grandkids are coming over to that. So they never really, especially like a lot of my classmates, they never really escaped that area. And even,
the same is true for me. It being like, after my dad got out of the Navy, grew up in like Nowheresville, North Carolina. Like, it was so weird. Like, after high school, so many people just stayed. Even if they went off to college, they came back. But then it was like the people who dated in high school didn't get married, but they married other people from high school. Yeah. It was a very weird dynamic. But yeah, so like looking at like all the people I went to high school with, especially, it's like most everybody's still there, honestly. So small towns, man.
Data.
Ouroboros.
Huh?
He became Ouroboros. Do you know watch the Loki TV series?
No. How much time do you think I have?
Oh my God.
Everybody assumes it because I've got HATM, like, you must watch everything. And I'm like, oh my God, you guys have no idea how much I don't want to watch
I could
TV
ask my son about Loki.
You guys are breaking my heart.
I'm sorry I'm not nerdy
Loki,
enough for
the
you,
TV
Jamie.
Series, Data becomes Ouroboros, who creates the entire like multiverse. So Loki ends up at the place where like they keep track of all the different tracks of the multiverse, right? And Data is Ouroboros, who is the architect of this. He's like this science, time lord, wizard, genius. That is who Data becomes. He becomes Ouroboros. It is Goonies in the future. So that is my and Ouroboros is played by Kiwi Kwan. Like, it is the same person.
You just went meta on us. Leah, are you buying in on this Ouroboros thing?
Me? No, I mean, my son could probably tell you all about it, but no, because he talks about, all of that all the time, but no, I don't watch it. But I do know that Data's character went on to this area.
So I haven't watched it either, so I can't weigh in on this one way or the other. Sorry, Jamie, I'm old. We established that that was the first thing we established.
John Wyatt is the oldest here.
I mean, I get that I am the baby of this group, but I am by
you're
far
not the baby of
young
anymore. You're questioning life at this point in time.
I've been questioning life since I was 5.
Have you figured it out yet? Because I'd like to know.
You know where the answer is? It's in the bottom of.
It's in the bottle of
bourbon.
Buffalo.
Yes.
So the question I have, the question I have about Data is like, how much his last line and last scene influences where he goes in life. So like, I believe he winds up as a software engineer working for like a Google or something like that. But is he like, has he decided that humanity matters in the system, or like, does that, because that last bit where his dad's camera doesn't work and he's like, it's okay, Dad, like hugs are better than technology. Like, does that carry on, or like, does he wind up as a 50-year-old who's like, the great thing about AI is that we can get rid of all of the people who do things?
Yeah, someone has to break bad in this show. Someone's gonna have to have a villain turn in this. One of the Goonies is gonna have to make a villain turn. Someone's got to go heel turn, and we've only got one person left, so it could be Data. What if Data is corrupted by the system later on? What if he gets heartbroken?
Do you know who's corrupted by the system?
Don't say Mikey.
Andy.
I was going to say Andy.
Andy's
becomes
a crack
Andy's going to be, because she's...
Well, that went in a direction I wasn't expecting, but sure.
What did you say?
I said Andy becomes a crack addict. It's Andy who moves to...
No,
there's your prostitution, Leah.
Yeah, absolutely.
What happens if Andy actually marries Troy after all?
I don't think she's going to marry Troy. I think she sees Troy's flaws, and she's trying to get out of her situation. She sees Troy's flaws. Troy's family just lost. She's not going
Right.
for Troy. There's other people in that in that region.
But you think she gets she succumbs and goes full MAGA?
I think she goes full MAGA.
Oh man, that's so sad.
It's one of two things. She either goes full MAGA and she's like Lauren Boebert MTG like 2.0, or she marries Mikey.
That's what I was gonna say. I think this is what happens. I think she marries Mikey. Mikey is a high school history teacher.
That makes sense.
It's the only thing for Mikey to be.
I was gonna say local archivist, but high school history teacher, sure. But I was gonna say like the local like county archives or whatever.
And they've got multiple kids, and Brand has to be the uncle to them, and it's a little weird.
Yep.
Sometimes
It is a little.
it's
weird.
like it's like the Christmas scene in The Bear.
Yeah.
So I can see this because the Andy character, and I said this earlier, right? The thing I didn't like about her is that she doesn't so much have her own personality. She just sort of attaches onto other people, right? And so like it would make sense in the context of all of the different characters in the movie that she would like find herself attracted to the primary like driving personality in the group.
And it was Mikey.
Which is absolutely Mikey.
Well, I mean, I'm putting my femme theory cap on at the moment, but to me, she represents the pirate's booty in the in the film, because she's the prize that these two men are fighting over, and so her character is just that, is the pretty girl who's the cheerleader, who becomes the treasure, who is the treasure to be won. And so she's the pirate's booty in the end.
And Mikey's the only one of the group who doesn't view her that way.
Hence worthy of
in my opinion.
Who's worthy?
He's also the best treasure seeker out of the lot.
Jesus, we got way deeper on the show than I wrote that. All right. Final question. We have two final questions tonight. Your penultimate question.
Okay.
Bring it.
What is your pirate name?
I mean, I already have one. That's
what is it? Go for it. What is it?
Torian. So it is a combination of my social media monikers, which is La Historienne, which is French for the historian, and Tyrion Lannister, because I drink and I know things. So Torian, I am the ship scholar for the Mare Nostrum, which is a group based out of Southern Maryland. We go to the Maryland Renaissance Festival.
I love it. So
that is my pirate alter ego, and that's if you should happen to be at the Maryland Renaissance, fly out to the Maryland Renaissance Festival this September for Pirate Weekend. That Saturday, I will be there yet again signing books.
Sorry, I'm trying to get HATM qualified. I'm literally trying to get us into Telluride this year. Like, I'm going for it because we're here. Leah, what's your pirate name?
Mine wouldn't be so eloquent. I would probably be called Big Booty something, and I'm the harlot or the
Big Booty something sounds good.
Or the wench. I'm the wench, like Big Booty Leah, the wench that like passes out the beers to the.
I feel like you could play off something like off the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, which we still have to do on this pod. Something like, couldn't you be Booty Parton or something like that?
Could be like,
Booty Parton.
Booty Treasure, something.
Yeah. John Wyatt?
It's got to be something with eels, right?
Yeah.
Does it? Does it have to be? You could be a lamprey. Oh, fine. Okay, go for it.
Well, I mean, it could be lamprey. I mean, like, that's the only tattoo I've got is an eel. So, like, that sort of points me in the right direction. I don't know. Yeah, I get called the eel guy a lot. That's not a really very pirate kind of name, though.
Actually, that would be awesome if your pirate name was just the eel guy. Hey, whose flag is that? It's the eel guy. Oh,
well, okay, but then I could call my ship the Eel Wind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blows no good.
You do whatever. All right.
I'm seeing more of a cart, like your snake oil salesman, like the eel guy.
Eel guy. Yeah.
Selling your wares, your magical potions.
They want me eels.
You could be Black John Eel.
There we go.
There we go.
I'm pretty white, but still, in a lot of ways.
It's the Black Legend. Black Sam Bellamy, very white. Blackbeard, very white.
All right. So I just have to be evil. I can do that. I can be evil.
Or mysterious.
Mm-hmm.
Because Black Sam Bellamy, not evil, just very mysterious.
Something to think about in the future. Was he not evil?
No, Black Sam Bellamy, not evil. He was known as the Prince of Pirates.
Well, when my son was little, we used to like get in the bath and stuff and play pirates and stuff like that. He had his pirate name, and I had mine, and I've kept mine. I'm Dirty Blake Wallace. That's my that's my pirate name, Dirty Blake Wallace. All right, final question. Is The Goonies a history movie? Jamie
Yes.
Goodall, it's your first episode.
Absolutely. Because what is history but legend?
That's good.
I think it is. Absolutely.
I'd say no. I don't think it's a history movie. It's a fun movie, but I don't think it's a history movie. Like, you could make the sort of Thomas Lecoq argument that that's a history movie and that it speaks to a specific moment in like of 80s history, right? A moment in time. We can look at it as kind of like an encapsulated time capsule. That's the Pendleton talking.
I just feel like if you're going to pull a Thomas Lecoq reference, you've got to say it angrily. You've really got to have some pent up rage there.
Right.
Something along the lines and just be like,
okay. So hold on. Do you want me to try it again?
Yeah, please. Just one more time for the Thomas Lecoq. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so if it's going to be a history movie, right? Like if you could talk about it as like this fucking thing from the 1980s where it's like, yes, this is how we were at this time, and like we can look back at it and be like, okay, yeah, like it's a time capsule telling us about this this Reagan era economics bullshit period, but yeah, as an actual like movie talking about history in the past and like what fucking pirate ships actually look like, no, not at all. Is that better?
A little bit. I think he needed a few more fucks in there, but I think it was good.
I'm practicing. It's a work in progress.
I will say it's pretty accurate shit, by the way. So, if your problem is with the
actually,
ship,
I had problems with the map, but not the ship. I don't know enough about ships.
Okay.
My chest was hurting like from the insides because I talked to Thomas on the phone earlier and he was so happy because he's in New England right now and he's like, I just love the archives. Did you know there are trees in Vermont, Jason? When Thomas is happy, he's so fucking happy. I had a Snickers today. Had you ever considered the interplay between chocolate and peanuts and caramel? This just delightful. Someone thought of that somewhere along the way, and they thought, that's good. And they thought, I shouldn't keep this to myself, Jason. I should share it. And I feel like in calling you, this is our Snickers moment. Look, there's a butter. God, it's springtime.
I had a very similar conversation with him today because he was driving across the state.
Called me. I think he called us on the same drive. So I think I prefer Angry Thomas, actually, because like Happy Thomas is like, he's so much. We love him.
Funny.
I know. All right. Jamie Goodall, Leah Lagrone, John Wyatt Greenlee. Guys, thank you so very much for being here. I was so excited to share this and talk about this movie that's, I don't know, isn't it? I don't fucking know if it's a history movie or not, but it's part of our history.
It's fun.
Right?
It's part of our history.
It really did form. And the thing that I really love is that three of us here have kids, and the three of us have all shared this film with our kids. And that's a cool part. Like when you can legitimately share something like this that really informed your childhood, you think fondly on it. And then like our kids do this and, maybe they share with their kids too. I mean, I can only imagine that they might. This movie is held up extraordinarily. It really does. There are films from the 80s that do this. The original Back to the Future, a few others. It's such a fun movie. And sitting back and getting to watch it and share this thing and to share it with you guys has been such a lot of fun. So, guys, thank you so very much. I don't know how to end this except for to say one last...
This ship is a treasure.
Goonies never die.
Goonies never die.
This whole ship is a treasure.
Never say die, right? I was trying to work a hey you guys in there, but we'll do that in the intro. Guys,
never die.
This was a blast. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap here at Historians of the Movies podcast. Thank you so very much to our guests, John Wyatt Greenlee, Leah Lagrone, and Jamie Goodall for being here tonight, for making us laugh, for taking us down memory lane to talk about this movie that we all love, and sharing this with guys and people that we all love, because I just love the three of you so much. And I love this community that we are creating, we're building as well. So thank you so very much for being here. Thank you, of course, to our producer, Fletcher Powell, for also being here, for helping to create HATM, to help guide and shape it as we move forward. And most of all, you guys, the Goonies at large, those of you who are out there who are sharing this message, who are sharing this podcast with your friends, telling us about it and things like that, helping us to grow every single week. I tell you this every single week, but you guys mean so much to me. I spend all this time working on this pod, on the watch party at night. It's a lot of hours. And it's something that I absolutely love doing. I love doing because it's something you guys come into. And when we release these pods, I see you guys listening and talking about it and retweeting and stuff like that. It's aside from my kids, it's my most favorite thing in the world. I won't lie to you guys. It just means the world to me. So if you're still out there, still listening to me rant, thank you so much for being here and being part of this community. Thank you for being a Goonie, I guess. I don't even know what the HATM version of that is. So thanks for being a Goonie, I guess. So thanks for being here. Keep listening. And we've got more stuff coming to you. We've got an amazing summer coming up. I've got all these amazing scholars and films lined up for you coming up this summer. So I'm just glad you're here. Ciao for now.